with some ham and potatoes. I'm gonna bake up a sourdough loaf, and then we're gonna make some Rice Krispie treats with some leftover Halloween candy and all that jazz. So I'm gonna pop out my sourdough loaf here. I'm hoping it all turns out. I fell asleep the other day and forgot that I had it proofing on my counter. So I'm hoping we'll still get a great spring out of it. But we'll have to see. Otherwise, I have a second one in my fridge, and I'm just going to turn it into some focaccia. But I think I rescued it enough to where I can get a nice loaf out of it. It will always taste good, but you don't always get the best spring out of it when you overproof it because your gluten structures are on there are a little bit weaker, but it looks like it has still a good spring. So I've got my Dutch oven preheated here to 500 degrees. I'm gonna pop my loaf in. There we go. Put the lid on, and we're gonna bake it for 20 minutes at 500, then we'll do 20 minutes at 450 with the lid off. And this will go great for our chowder to be able to just have nice chunks of hot sourdough bread to dip into the creamy, delicious chowder. So let's add that in there, 500 degrees, and I'm gonna set my timer for 20 minutes. There we go. And while that's baking, let's start prepping our chowder. We're gonna caramelize some onions up, prep our potatoes, mince some garlic, and get that going. We're gonna do like a ham, potato, and corn chowder. So just kind of a classic chowder, which will be delicious. I know I was thinking, I'm like, oh, if I had thought ahead, I was like, I should have made some bread bowls to go with the chowder because chowder is such a great soup. Like bread bowls, you need a soup that has a nice thick texture for it so you don't make the bread bowl too soggy. So I'll have to think ahead and figure out, because I do want to make some bread bowl soon because that's one of my favorite ways to eat soup is in a bread bowl. Okay, so I've got one yellow onion, and I'm going to kind of dice this up fairly small for our chowder. But we want all of that onion flavor to come into kind of the base of it. We're also going to be using some celery, which will add a little bit more of that aromatic notes to the broth. Stick it in my knife. Get these minced up, and then I'm going to start kind of caramelizing them, bring out their natural sweetness because I want that flavor to really come out, especially with the corn.
You have a question? Did you stream last night?
Did not stream last night. Last night I feel like I spent 5 hours in the car. I was literally out running sports kind of errands from 4:30 until 10 o'clock at night. I actually made my dinner in stages because we had fried rice and salmon last night. And so I made the fried rice, which kept well, and I cooked half the salmon for my first crew so that they could eat it, and then the other half when they got home because we had soccer practice, 2 soccer practices, and a basketball practice. And it was all over the place. It was such a crazy night. But that's the only Monday because it was like this extra practice for Elena's team. So I'm hoping no more chaos like that.
You have a question? Have you ever made a chicken tortilla soup?
I have. I actually have a couple videos on chicken tortilla soups. I have 2 types of chicken tortilla soups I make. I have one which is that nice, like kind of rich, creamy, cheesy chicken tortilla soup. And then I have another one that has this lovely broth base, which is kind of like Chewy's chicken tortilla soup, if you've ever had Chewy's before. But I do love a good chicken tortilla soup. You'll have to dig through. I do have a couple of those videos though posted. Okay, we've got our onions starting to caramelize here. Let's get our garlic. I'm just gonna use, I don't need a whole lot of garlic, about 3 cloves, so about a teaspoon of garlic in here. I'll mince it up and we'll get that kind of going. Just turn that down a smidge on here. Those onions, whew. I will say this batch of onions that I have got, they are so strong. I'm gonna try not to cry here because my eyes are watering. Okay. We're gonna mince this up, and then after our onions have started to kind of caramelize, we'll throw these in, but not until then. And then we'll prep our celery after this, and then our potatoes, so we can get a good saute on all of those. And then we'll start working on the rest of our broth for it. There we go. Okay, so I've got this nice and ready for when we want to add it in on there. I've got our celery here, which is about 3 good sized stalks, 4 smaller ones if you want it. I got a little baby one here. I'm going to take off just this very bottom.
You have a question? Why do you prefer the silicone spatula instead of a wooden or metal spoon?
I like the silicone because I can use it on all my non-stick ones. So this happens to be a cast iron Dutch oven, but I have enamel coated Dutch ovens like from Lindsay, and then I have, you know, some non-stick pans. So I like that because if it's, you know, and silicone is heat resistant up to like 500, 600 degrees. So I don't have to worry about it like, you know, leaking into our foods and whatnot. And it's just easier to clean. Wooden utensils, you know, you have to hand wash, and you know, you have to kind of maintain them over time. And I just, you know, don't want to fuss with all of that. I've got 5 kids, so having to hand wash utensils is just bleh. And then the metal, I have nothing really against metal. I just can't use it in all of my things. So I like to have something that's more universal on there. And I love this spatula. I've had this one. I have these like 4 of them from Williams-Sonoma, and I've had them for like almost 20 years. I just love them. I know I keep saying, I'm like, oh, I should probably like refresh them, but you know, they just work. And when I find something that works, I use it until it completely goes kaput.
And for soups, what determines if you use enamel or cast iron?
Honestly, I will say that things that I want more of a kind of lovelier saute on it, to bring a little bit more of that flavor into like a thicker type base on there, I'll use a cast iron kind of coated one. But the difference is very minimal in the kind of the cook there. A lot of times I just grab whatever pot is right there or cooking there, but I really like this one. It's a pot my mom got me. The only problem with this one, and this is like a mental thing, although now I can officially use it, is it's a Christmas tree one, so it has a Christmas tree or like an evergreen tree on the top, and I have officially switched over to, you know, the Christmas season there, but I will say that's the only like thing on it. I love this size pot because it's a perfect lunch soup pot for our family. It makes a good like 4, and if you stretch it to smaller servings, like, you know, 6 serving things, which is perfect for our lunch since I'm not cooking for all of my kids at lunchtime. Okay, I've got my celery here pretty diced up. I like, again, nice smaller chunks of the celery. That way you just aren't getting hit with a huge one. Our onions have got this beautiful caramelization going on them. As you can see, they've got this nice kind of golden color to it. So I'm going to throw my celery in, or my garlic into it, and we'll let that saute up. I'm going to turn my heat down to about a 5 now.
You have a question? Who do you cook for in the afternoons?
So in the afternoons, I cook for my husband and I, my parents, and then I will say when all of my older kids get home from school, they always want a little something. So the treats are typically always for them, and then of course, you know, Torin, anytime there's things like that. Soup though, when Teddy gets home, he always loves soup. He's my soup lover of it. And he likes his second lunch, or like he calls second dinner sometimes when he gets there, because he's got to have it all. It's funny. He's a hobbit, I swear. Teddy eats like 10 times a day. And actually it's my boys. My boys are such big eaters. I feel like they're always eating, and I feel that like myth of, oh, they'll eat you out of the house. It's true. They will. My girls, they're very delicate eaters, but not my boys. Okay, I've got my garlic in here. You only need to cook it for about a minute. You don't want to leave it too long without adding in some other stuff. Let's get our celery in here. Again, nice diced up. This was about 3 big stalks of celery, including the leaves. You keep the leaves on. They add a nice kind of very aromatic celery flavor to it, which is just lovely. I'm gonna let that saute, and let's start prepping up our potatoes. And I have a good amount of potatoes that we're gonna add in there, and then I also have some cooked ham that we'll add. I'm going to kind of do a smaller dice on these potatoes so that I'm not getting just huge chunks of potatoes, but really getting, you know, a lovely bite of potato with all the veggies in every bite. These are Yukon Gold, which will hold their shape really well for this soup, which I love. A russet will kind of get more mushy and works better for those potato soups that you want to like puree. This is perfect for like a chowder where you still want those individual pieces of potatoes. You could peel the skin if you want to, but with it being a Yukon Gold, that skin is very delicate. So all you have to do is give them a good scrub, and then they're perfect for going straight into the soup, skin and all. That's good. Again, I'm doing a nice smaller kind of cubing on it. You can go a little bit bigger, just don't go too large because then you'll have to cook your soup even longer. The smaller potatoes will again get tender quicker before larger cuts. And look at these guys. Slide those in there. Now, if I was going to make like, sometimes I make a similar soup to this, but like a twice baked potato soup or like a loaded baked potato soup, I would use a russet because that is going to give you that thicker potato-y base to it. I'm going to start putting my first bit of potatoes in. I'm still going to cut up a few more and add them in, but I want to get these guys starting to saute. Because again, we want a good amount of potatoes in this soup because it is a good chowder. So let's get these guys starting. I'm gonna, use 2 more. And then, again, we'll add some corn and some diced up ham, and then we're gonna add our spices. I'm gonna use my main spice that I'm using today, I should say spices, is going to be thyme and bay leaves, and then of course garlic, a little garlic salt, and black pepper. Those I feel like are going to add just great flavors to it. Thyme is always lovely. I think it pairs well with potatoes in here, and with a creamier base broth. And then we'll use chicken bouillon for kind of our base, but you could also just use chicken broth if you wanted to. And vegetable bouillon will work, but I feel like chicken actually just hits a little bit nicer with this recipe than vegetable. Okay, let's get these guys in here. Give them a nice kind of saute up. Okay, let's start cubing up our ham. I've got just a nice thing of already pre-cooked spiral cut ham, or sliced ham. You could also use ham cubes for this. I'm just gonna cube mine up. If you're gonna use one and you're gonna cube it yourself, just take off that outer layer of the ham skin. I'm gonna do that here in just a second because it is going to be really chewy when you cook it up. So what I do is I'll just hold it here and I'm just gonna cut off the edges just like that. And that's just gonna give you a kind of nicer texture to your overall end product here. Now, if that doesn't bother you, you can definitely keep them on. But I do find that they get a little tougher and are chewier. I'll dice these up. And I like to, because I never use all like ham in one thing, I just get this sliced ham, which then I can use in soups and I can use in an omelet. sandwiches, I can kind of use it. It's pretty versatile because it's thin enough to still use on a sandwich, but you can also cube it up just fine. And this is going to add such a great flavor to it. But that way you don't have to get like a whole package and use it on there. You can use it in so many different recipes. Okay. Let me rinse my hands here just a second. Got a little hand juice on it. And we are going to start kind of seasoning up our base for this on there. And then we'll add in our little broth and kind of simmer it there. I'm going to start with 2 bay leaves. I'll toss those in here. And then we're going to do about a teaspoon of dried thyme. You could use fresh thyme as well. It's lovely on here. Just kind of sprinkle a little bit around. We'll mix that in here in just a second. So about a teaspoon all together. We're going to use about a teaspoon of ground black pepper. Maybe do a little sprinkle more. And then I'm going to give it a good shake of garlic salt, about, I would say like a half a teaspoon, because we are going to be using that chicken bouillon, which is going to give us a more salt to it. So mix this up, get those herbs a chance to kind of get a little heat on them. There. Smells wonderful. We're going to kind of put it there, and I've got mine on to just around a 5. So you don't want to go too high. We can turn it up a little bit higher once we add our broth base into it, but we don't need that up right now. Before we add in our broth, we're going to sprinkle a little bit of flour over this. And this is going to help thicken it up, give you a slightly thicker one. Now, I don't like my chowders to be super thick, but you do want a richer base, so you do need to use some. You can always use cornstarch if you need to go gluten-free, but if you're going to do cornstarch, what we'll do is at the end, you will take out about a cup of your hot liquid that's been stewing, and then you'll mix some cornstarch into that first, and then back into to thicken it up. But you don't want to add it in now, or it won't get quite the right consistency and texture. So I'm starting with about, I want to say maybe a tablespoon and a half of flour. I'm going to mix it up. I'll probably add a little bit more in. But we're going to kind of coat up all of our potatoes and our ham and our spices, everything in here with that. And then I'm going to add a bit more. And that's going to help us thicken up our soup base. But I don't like to just dump it all in at one time. I like to kind of coat everything and then add a little bit more on there. Okay, and then we're going to add just a couple more little sprinkles here. Probably going to be close to like 2.5 tablespoons. Okay, let's get this guy mixed in. And we'll let that kind of heat up and toast for just a second. I'm going to go wash my hands in just a second because they're nice and powdery. And then we'll start slowly adding in our liquid, our like broth base to it. Now we have corn, but we're going to add the corn in once we kind of get the soup going in there. I don't like to add it in here because it is frozen corn, so you know, it would bring out. If you wanted to use fresh corn, yes, add it in first to kind of give it a good saute because it needs to cook a little bit. We're going to add in about a cup of our water right now. Again, we'll add a big scoop of chicken bouillon to flavor this up, but we're going to start with a cup of water. You can use a cup of chicken broth too. And then we're going to kind of go through and coat this up. Make sure you scrape along the bottom and the edges on there. And we'll kind of give it a good mix. And then we're going to add a little bit more. I like to go slowly and in stages. This is going to allow me to get the right thickness to my soup and I don't just cool the whole thing down too fast. It just allows everything to kind of marry together a little bit more nicely when you go low, a little bit slower instead of just dumping and flooding it. There we go. And I will be adding in some cream as well as a liquid base, but I don't add my cream until the very end because again, I don't want it to kind of curdle or get like scorched. I'll add in another cup. Here we go. And just again, just slowly mix that in. And now I'll add that last bit. And I think I might add just a smidge more. Like another half cup. Here we go. And as it cooks, it's gonna thicken up some more. We will also be adding in some cream as well, but this is the base to it. I'm gonna bring my heat up. There's my little bay leaf hiding right there. He's trying to escape. Push that guy down. Again, get any of those. We're gonna let this come to a nice simmer, but before we step away, don't forget to add your bouillon or you'll have a very bland soup. So let's add in a nice big scoop of our bouillon. And then we'll be ready to take our lid off of our sourdough because it is just about to beep at us. So I've got one big scoop in here. We're gonna let this kind of come to a simmer and then I'll taste the base of my broth here in just a second to see if I need to add any more or whatnot. Let's go get our sourdough lid taken off. We'll check to see if I overproofed it or not. Okay. Take it out. So we had it baking for 20 minutes at 500. Looks like it's pretty good. Here, this is the one I meant to shape it up at midnight, and I fell asleep, and I did it in the morning.
You have a question about the corn. Is it whole kernel or cream corn?
Whole corn kernel. So it's just frozen corn. You don't want to use cream corn in here. It just won't add the right, consistency to it. Okay, we're gonna bring our temperature down to 450. And 20 minutes. Okay, everything is going good. Okay, got my chaos over here. I've been slowly unpacking my Christmas decorations. I'm a little crazy. I've gotten through about half of them. Apparently I had 29 tubs. 30 tubs of Halloween or Christmas decorations, so. And he forgot to bring some of our outside decorations, so he's gonna have to go back and look in the attic again. He's gonna have so much fun. Here, got a little bit of flour in here. We'll dust this out. We can start working on our Rice Krispie treats. I've got some Halloween peeps as well as marshmallows and some M&Ms I took out of the candy baskets or their candy bags to make some Rice Krispie treats. It's funny, like our kids' school, you're not allowed to send candy with them to school, but I can send Rice Krispie treats with candy on it. And I think that just works. Okay, we're gonna start by melting 1 stick of butter here. I'm gonna bring my temperature down to like a 4 because I don't want it to, I don't want to brown my butter, I just want it nice and melted. Let me taste my soup here, see if I need to add any more bouillon in it. Now again, I want it to be a little bit stronger than my ending because we are going to be adding in corn and cream, which will dull the flavors out. Oh, I think it's good. I don't think I need to add anything else. So we're gonna let that simmer on, I'm gonna do around let's do about a 7. Okay. Let's get our butter, at least base melted here. I'm gonna cut this up. Now, this is a slightly different recipe than my normal Rice Krispie recipe because I am using peeps and stuff like that. But my recipe is also very different from the one on the back of the boxes because I like to have more marshmallow gooiness and butter in each one of my Rice Krispies so that they're not dry, but just marshmallowy gooey goodness. So we've got our butter melting here. Once I have a good kind of base there, I'm gonna start putting in our marshmallows. This is the most random collection of marshmallows. I've got marshmallows left over from our camping trip because we had s'mores. You gotta get the square ones, they work so much better. And then I had another random bag of marshmallows, and I've got 2 packs of Halloween Peeps that never got eaten over it. So they're gonna go in there. It's gonna give them a kind of funky, cool color, but they'll all taste the same once it's melted down. If you're gonna use Peeps, Peeps have a little bit of a sugar coating on them, so just put your regular marshmallows in first. Don't use all Peeps because again, that sugar just makes it a little bit more, challenging to work with because it can kind of burn on there. You want to go low and slow. Now, ideally, I will say the best marshmallows to use are the mini ones, but you don't always have mini ones. These will work, they just take a little bit longer. Let me grab some scissors. And I'm just cutting up the Peeps. You could leave them whole, but this is going to allow the color kind of to disperse throughout. So we've got some Frankensteins going in. The kids ate the ghosts and the pumpkin ones. I think we made s'mores with them one time. I never understood the allure to Peeps. I never liked them as a kid, but I also don't like marshmallows. But my kids, they seem to like these. My husband does too, and I never got it. Okay, let's cut these guys up. We got some Halloween purple on there. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't adding some flavored ones because I got some weird, crazy flavored ones too. Like some not Diet Dr. Pepper, that's what I love to drink, but I got Dr. Pepper Peeps, which were okay. They were interesting. They were still marshmallows by the end of it. Here we go. Let's cut these guys up. And last little pack. It's kind of like cleaning out the pantry, getting rid of all of it to make something that the kids will definitely eat and love. And it's just a great way to kind of use up some of the Halloween candy. So we're gonna mix these guys in. And again, I have mine down nice and low, and we're gonna let them kind of melt out. And then as we're mixing in the Rice Krispie treats, then we'll mix in the M&Ms. M&Ms work really great in for like our Peeps or for our Rice Krispie treats because that nice candy shell prevents them from melting everywhere. The purple and the green are kind of making this like a grayish brown. I might whip out some food coloring to make it look prettier. We'll see how it goes towards the end. These are our Frankenstein. It's just a great way to kind of use them up.
Should have got out Teddy's color wheel.
I know. Well, yeah. We'll see. I was hoping that they were such a pale purple that I didn't think they would impact too much. Okay, let's get these guys melting. I'm going to give our soup a little bit of a stir here. Now that it's nice to a nice boil, we're going to add in our corn. Let's get a nice stir first. And you can see we've already got this kind of nice, slightly thicker broth to it. Okay, so I again have just some frozen corn, and this is a small amount.
For the Rice Krispies, can you go over how much butter and how many marshmallows?
So I used a whole stick of butter, and my ideal amount of marshmallows is, if you're gonna buy it from the pack, is 2 of those like 11-ounce bags of the mini marshmallows. Those work the best. This is like a random collection, but it looks about having about 22 ounces. Add in our corn. I'm gonna add in a whole bag because this is only about 1.5 cups of corn.
This is an interesting question. Have you ever used starter for roux?
I actually thought about that the other day when I was making, I think a gumbo base to it, and I was like, I bet you could use starter to do the roux. and just thinking about it, I've never done it, but I thought that maybe you could. Now, the only difference is, you know, the starter has a liquid base to it, so I'm not sure how it would react with the flour right away, because you add your liquid later after you brown the flour in the butter. But I actually had that same idea. I've never tried it, but I thought about it in there, and I thought, I wonder if it would work. I'll have to maybe experiment with it one time. Okay, there we go. They're starting to melt now. Now I always say the little marshmallows again work the best, because the little marshmallows melt so much nicer than the big ones. I'm going to use my spatula here to kind of break them up, but I think they'll be fine. I don't think I'll need to dye them to make them less crazy color, but I might pop in a little bit of food coloring. We'll see. I think once the big ones melt, it's going to kind of dull out all of the other colors. Plus, it's not like it's just on its own. Here we go. It's one of those funny things, you know, my husband mentioned the color wheel and how you mix colors. And with my kids with Play-Doh, I'm always like, we don't mix colors, because when we mix colors, we only get an ugly brown at the end. So we want to keep them separate. I'm a big thing, I don't like to mix my Play-Doh colors. And then except there's occasional times where I'm like, we're learning and doing a color mixing activity, and they get it mixed in. They're like, we get it in. They're like, always there. And I can't remember if it was one of my daughters, but she was like, how is it that every time when you mix colors, it always turns out pretty, and when I mix colors, it turns out gross, like brown and ugly? And I said, well, it's because if you don't realize your primary, your secondary, and your tertiary colors, you don't, you know, it's not gonna turn out the way you want. And it was one of those questions that we were playing, are you smarter than a 5th grader? And it came up on there like, oh, what are your secondary colors? I'm just gonna say, I got that question right, and my husband did not, so.
I can't even name the primaries.
I know, and that's one of those things I feel like, because I was a teacher, and, you know, I would be friends, like working with young kids, I loved it. I know them, but I'm surprised that a lot of people don't know their primary colors. Which, for those of you who might be wondering what I'm talking about, your primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. And they're primary because you can make all of the other colors from those colors. Hence, don't mix green and purple together and expect that you're going to have a really pretty looking Rice Krispie treats. They've got their nice, you know, cloudy phantom color going on to them. There we go. Let's get these guys melting a little bit faster here. You can see the Peeps' eyes are melting. They have like little chocolate dots for it. Once these are melted in, we're gonna add in about 9 cups of Rice Krispie treats, or Rice Krispies. You don't wanna add them in until it is all melted and you've got most of your lumps gone. Now, once they actually start melting, it goes pretty fast. You can also do this in the microwave, where you first put it in. You want to oil a microwave bowl first. I always like to oil that ring, and then you put your butter in, and you microwave, stirring like every minute to 30 seconds.
You have a question? What's the best way to clean the marshmallow off the pan?
This is what I love about it. All you do is you pop it in your sink after you've made it, fill it up with water, and in 10 minutes, all the marshmallow has completely dissolved away. So you just sit there and you leave it, and you don't have to worry about it. It's really, really easy to clean up. Really easy. Okay, that should be done in just a second here. Let's get our corn. I'm gonna turn this down now. We can start prepping while we wait for that to melt just a little bit more. I've got some green onions that we're gonna add into our soup at the very end after we add in our cream base for it. But we're gonna bring this to a simmer. The one thing that's nice about the potatoes, cutting them small is going to allow them to get tender quicker. Also, sautéing them up in the pan before we add it in our broth is also going to allow them to get nice and tender faster. Let's see. I'm gonna we'll do about 3 green onions here to give them a quick rinse.
And can you go over what's in the soup so far?
So far in the soup, we have 1 yellow onion, about 3 stalks of celery, about 4 or 5 Yukon Gold potatoes diced up, some ham. I would say it's probably like you know, a cup of diced ham, about a cup and a half of corn, and then chicken broth or chicken, you know, bouillon, thyme, bay leaves, black pepper, garlic, salt, a little bit of flour there, and you kind of saute everything up. Oh, and some garlic, some minced garlic. But delicious.
Could you use marshmallow fluff for the Rice Krispies?
So marshmallow fluff, it can work. The problem is sometimes the marshmallow fluff doesn't set well, and you kind of have to mix with your butter ratios and stuff like that. I like using just good old marshmallows. Now we're kind of getting here. We've got this kind of grayish color going to it. That's from that purple and the green. But you can always throw in some food coloring if you have some crazy colors going there. Or if you're just normal and use regular marshmallows, they'll be nice and creamy white. Here, I bet you I'm gonna throw in some colors. I feel like the kids would like that. Make it a little exciting. What color do you think I should throw in with this? I've got an insane amount of food coloring. I'm deciding whether I want to go green, which I think would be kind of cool, but it's not. Ooh, but I could play on green being Christmas because I have made my Christmas transition over. So we're gonna do that. I want good green. I want a nice dark green. Just a couple drops of it, and that should give it a nice good coloring. Look at that. Look at our good Christmas green. Just fun. There we go. And our marshmallows are almost melted up here. It's got our good paste to it. I feel like we've got a good kind of Christmas green. I feel like it's a very on-trend green right now. Normally I like to do the neon green, but this is the time of year when the nice kind of Kelly green is evergreen green is all kind of shining and nice. Okay, we almost have these big chunks gone. Once they're melted, we're gonna add in our Rice Krispies. Let's give our soup a good stir here. And you can see just as I'm stirring it, just kind of how thick that base is to it. It's nice and lovely. It's not a super thin broth. You want it nice and thick. I don't like it to be gelatinous thick, but I like it to have a good substance to it. It's a chowder. We will be adding cream to it, so don't worry. We'll have that in there. Okay. Get these guys going. Let me go grab my Rice Krispies because I realized I left them right here. And for this, we're gonna use about 9 cups of Rice Krispies. Now I'm gonna measure this carefully and kind of mix in a little bit halfway through because I didn't use my normal 2 of my smaller size bags, so I wanna make sure I have the right ratio before I mix them in, you know. Because one of the worst things is having dry Rice Krispies. And when I mean dry, it means not enough of that marshmallowy gooiness to it. Here we go. Break those up. I've got mine down now nice and low because again, you don't want to heat this up too much. Here we go. Just breaking up some of those bigger chunks here so they melt up nicely, but we should be able to add these in pretty soon now. When I add them in, I just turn off my burner. I don't leave the heat on, but I like it to still be on here because it allows it to stay warm, which means I can fully coat my Rice Krispies before it cools, which is one of the reasons why I like also doing it in my pan versus with a like a microwave, because the microwave, as soon as you kind of take it out, it's gonna be like already cooling off. There we go, those last bits will melt by the time we add them in here. So, about 9 cups of Rice Krispies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. I'm gonna mix these in and then I'm gonna check it just to see my consistency because I didn't use an exact measurement. but I've got 2 more that if I need to add it in, I will. Yep, I can definitely use those 2 more. Always err on the side of being cautious. So 1 and 2. Don't make the mistake of pouring in a whole box of Rice Krispies because it is not the right measurement and you'll get more dry Rice Krispies than the nice ooey gooey deliciousness. So you see how I have, and you can really tell with the green, how I have marshmallow that coats every single bit of Rice Krispie. That is what I'm telling you. That is what is going to make these the bomb. Okay, before we put them out into our pan, this is the time to add in your M&Ms. So I've got lots of M&Ms. If I had thought ahead, I would have picked out the colors and I could have put just Christmas colors in here and it would have been even cooler, but I did not. Slide these in. I will say, I was impressed. My kids this year, they got several full-size candy bars. And I'm just like, who has that budget? There we go. So we'll mix these in. That's probably like a half a cup of M&Ms if even. We'll mix them in. And now, the trick is when we put our Rice Krispies in our pan, we're gonna press them down. You're gonna wanna oil your pan. That way when you go to cut them or you wanna take them out, they don't stick to the pan. So I just spray it with a little bit of oil or pan, just to give it a nice kind of slick base. And this is a ceramic pan, but it works with all types of pan, and it does make a difference. It makes it to where they come out just so nice and easy. Okay, now we're just gonna scoop these in. And the nice thing with this pan being hot, this stuff will all come out really easy, and it makes it pretty easy to kind of shape these guys up. There we go. Again, we don't want to waste any of this stuff because this is Torn's favorite dessert. He loves Rice Krispie treats. And you know what, I have to say, I love Rice Krispie treats. Whenever I used to go visit my grandmother, my step-grandmother in Minnesota, she always had a nice tray of Rice Krispie treats waiting for me. That, and she made the best buttered toast, which is really just toast with butter, but it was amazing. Okay, let's go grab our sourdough out, then we will shape this up, and then we'll finish up our soup because we are just about done with everything. Okay. Oh, gorgeous. Has a nice pretty peak on it too. And here was me worrying that I overproofed it. It looks pretty darn good. Okay. Let's set that there. We're going to shape our Rice Krispies in just a second. But before I do, I want to take this out so that it has a chance to kind of cool a little bit. You don't want that base to overcook, but we have this nice kind of golden brown. Our beautiful there. And look at our nice kind of scoring there, topped up nicely for it. So pretty good loaf. But always take it out of your Dutch oven because if you kind of leave it sitting there for too long, it will continue to cook and it will give you that really like crunchy bottom. Okay, this is our soup. We're gonna add our cream in just a second, but let me grab some parchment paper so we can press down our Rice Krispie treats and get there, and then we'll finish this guy off. Okay, so we'll spread these out. And you wanna do this while it's still kind of hot. Now, you can't just spoon them in there and leave it and it's a day. When these cool, if you left it like this, they would be so fluffy and fall apart. What you're gonna do, and you wanna use parchment paper, not wax paper. Place this over the top, and while they're still warm, you're gonna press it down and squeeze out all of that space, that open space into it. So it's a nice kind of solid brick. And just push it down. There we go, and pull it off. And voila, we've got our Rice Krispie treats using our Halloween peeps and some leftover Halloween candy. Okay, let's finish off this soup now. There we go. So we've got our things. We're gonna add in our cream. So this is gonna give it, again, that great creamy flavor to it. You don't need a whole lot of cream to get you there. So I feel like people use a lot more than they need. I'm gonna start with like 1/3 of a cup. We'll mix it in and then I'll see what it looks like and tastes like with that. But just look how using just a little bit already gives you that nice kind of creamy color and texture. So let's have a nice little spoonful here and taste it. Perfect, don't need to add any more. And I will say I don't even think I used 1/3 of a cup, but just enough to get you that creamy flavor without, you know, just loading it full of it. Okay, I've got 2 green onions. We're gonna slice these up and we're gonna throw them in there. I always like to add these at the very end because they add such a great kind of fresh onion flavor to your soup, which just makes it lovely. Okay. Toss these guys in. And give this one last stir. And we have our beautiful corn and potato chowder. Okay, let's get served up. Slide this guy over here. Look at our beautiful sourdough bread. We've got awesome Halloween Rice Krispies. And let me get our soup over here. And let me get a bowl. Okay. Look at this. I already have my Christmas ladle out and everything. I'm just so festive, guys. Okay, for lunch today, we have our creamy corn and potato chowder full of celery, onions, ham chunks, green onions, thyme, Yukon Gold potatoes, bay leaves, little nice lovely broth made of chicken bouillon with a little bit of flour to thicken it up to give it this nice rich creamy flavor. And this soup will pair perfectly with our freshly baked sourdough bread. So nice good hunk of our traditional loaf into our bread. We had this kind of proofing overnight in there, and it's our traditional loaf, which is just that fabulous wonderful thing. And then of course we'll have a nice good chunk of our Rice Krispie treats made from our leftover Halloween candy and peeps. Well guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of our recipes at home, you can always go to that page, search for what we made, and watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my cutting boards, knives, pots, pans, all the different things I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.